Welcome back to the channel, everyone. What a frustrating evening at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Spurs did snatch a late point, a 1-1 draw against bottom of the table Wolves, thanks to a moment of quality from João Palhinha right at the depth. But let's be honest, this wasn't the performance that Spurs fans were expecting or hoping for, and it's a missed opportunity in order to go second in the table and build momentum moving forward in terms of that top four race. So we're going to break it all down, but most importantly, we also want to hear from you guys in the comments. So give us your thoughts as we break this down. Jack, let's get into it. Paulinho's stoppage time finish did save a point for Tottenham Hotspur, but has it masked deeper issues?
I think Spurs fans will be happy that we did salvage a point because it didn't mean that we dropped so far down the table. A lot of people are joking that if we didn't pick up a point at all, we would have slipped all the way back down to like seventh or something like that. Of course, there's still games to happen tomorrow on Sunday. But I think this is just a disgusting, ugly performance, really, from Spurs. But I would have taken. Dave knows me; I'm a weird sicko. I love an ugly performance as long as you do get over the line and pick up 3 points in games like this. Not every time can you just play scintillating football and be able to blow away teams, especially sometimes when you have a history of not playing well against a certain side. For example, this Wolves team, we've just never played well against them for the past multiple years now. So if I said it would be really good if we got like a 2-0, 3-0 win that was really convincing. I would have definitely read a lot into that. Like I would have felt like, you know what, maybe something really special is brewing here. But if we just got a regular win, something that wasn't necessarily too pretty on the eye, but we got over the line and were able to pick up a win, I would have been like, all right, fair play. This is something, that's better. We're clearly improving here. But the fact that we just continued the same trend against Wolves that previous managers have, that previous teams have, against, in my opinion, probably the worst Wolves side I've ever seen. It makes me sort of take a step back, really, in terms of, how far along really are Spurs in this Thomas Frank project. Maybe we could be getting a bit ahead of ourselves with some of the praise and whatnot. So that's what I would say, Dave, is like, felt like kind of as much as we got a point, and that might actually end up really benefiting us, let's say later down the road in the season, hopefully. Let's hope we look at it that way. For right now, in the immediacy of things, like, it felt like a step backwards, to be honest.
No, I completely agree with you. I think you got to look at it right, and there are a couple of small positives to take moving forward. Last year, we would have lost this game. We wouldn't have shown that bounce back ability. We've shown it 2 games on the trot now against Brighton and Wolves that even if things do go wrong and the game plan doesn't work from the off, we are showing the ability to be able to bounce back and put points on the board, which is always a good habit to get into when you don't play well. I think that's a huge positive. The fact that we salvaged something, we're also sitting there third in the league rather than 7. Two small positives. But in general, this has been 2 points lost. And that Paulinho goal has masked over a hell of a lot of problems. You know, you look at the last few games in general. How many times have we been speaking about that? We're not going to keep be able to rely on Lady Luck. And today, Lady Luck dried up.
Yeah.
We were being relying on own goals. That forward line is a huge problem. I think that Paulinho goal masks over that problem. Some of the other results we've picked up has been masking over that problem. That was the whole reason why we didn't get 3 points today, is because they were so piss poor. I think also the mentality, in years gone by, we've had similar opportunities present itself in the Premier League to take. We never take them. And that's something, if we really want to start getting back to competing in the league, we have to start taking these opportunities. We could sit here and go, oh, it's still early in the season. No. When you got teams like Liverpool coming flying out the traps and setting the pace, you've got to take opportunities like this and drag yourself closer in. And also, when Chelsea drop points today, a team that are sitting further down the league, looking for top 4, you've got to capitalise and make their job even harder to catch you. We keep missing these opportunities, so Thomas Frank still has a lot of work to do around mentality. Also, I think there should be a lot of questions around Thomas Frank in terms of some of his team selections the last couple of games. I think he's got some of the starting lineups wrong. I'd also argue, like we praised him for maybe some of his changes off the bench last week, I think today he deserves a lot of criticism. So I think in general, we'll take the point, we'll move on, but it is masking over problems. And it's a bit similar to what the first start of 10 games under Postecoglou, right? Things were going so well, but so many people sitting there saying, I'll get excited. It's masking over problems. And I think we're in a similar situation right now. I think the only good thing is defensively, bar that sort of small mistake for the goal, which we're going to get onto, it's given us the ability to be able to turn these games in, and put points on the board. So masking over problems for sure, despite the elation from Paulinia's goal. Moving into the goal then, Jack, I mean that we did concede. Vicario's initial save from Krajici hit Paulinia, and then Bueno finished. I mean, how much blame should go on someone like Vicario, who did make a mistake last week, compared to maybe just a bit of bad fortune?
I I'm probably going to need to watch back the highlights because I haven't had the chance to. But in the immediacy of the moment, I did think like looked like an opportunity to either parry it. If he felt like he couldn't hold on to it with two hands, he need to parry that so much better because he parries it off of his own player, and he's not parrying it as most keepers do in a good situation where you really look to push it to the side. You know, you really look to almost push it towards kind of the edge of the byline, ideally not out for another corner, but you don't sort of parry it as close to, you know, the action and the danger area as he did. But then it like kind of when you watch like the quick, we didn't get a ton of replays on it, but when we
Yeah.
watched like a replay of it, it was in really slow motion. So that's why I'm just gonna have to look back on it like more in kind of a faster speed. But it looked catchable with two hands. It did. Like you feel like, you know, the I don't know, the Allisons of the world, the Courtois of the world, you know, these sort of guys. You see a lot of them sometimes bring that down with two hands, even though it's difficult skill to do. Like good goalkeepers are able to do that. I rate Vicario and I think he's an excellent shot stopper, but sometimes he does have that tendency to look to parry it instead of catching it. You know, that's one of his other kind of flaws at times. And I think that was maybe an example of that with Vicario, just looking to parry it instead of maybe holding on to it with two hands. Because if you are going to parry it, you have to parry it into the right area. And I'm not sure if he did there. But just quickly on something you touched on the end there, I'm not even trying to claw for a positive here, but it felt like the only difference between last season and this season that I'm seeing is that Wolves had very few chances really in this game. Whereas last season, it would have felt like Spurs are doing nothing going forward. They're awful to watch going forward. They're carving chances out here and there, but they're not
Yeah.
taking them. It's just really gross football to watch. But at the same time, we would have felt like, geez, like we're just bound to concede at any
Yeah.
point now. This game did not feel like that. Like that goal, I'm not going to take anything away from Wolves there because it's not like we deserved anything really from this game. But that's what was kind of funny about this was like it probably should have just ended 0-0. You would say this game that had 0-0, terrible football all over it. And maybe that's what Frank has somehow done is to like make it so that, you know, if we are going to play a team, that there's a good chance the game could finish 1-0, 0-0. But I'm not even trying to make that into a positive. I'm just saying like maybe
No, I
that
think
was the difference between last season and this season is that last season, if we played this way, we knew it could end up being 2-0, 3-0 loss.
no, I think that's an absolute fair
Not a
point to make.
positive though. I'm just it's
No,
just a
I agree
point.
with you on that point, though. I think you are absolutely spot on. We do have a better ability this year when you don't play well to put points on the board for sure. In terms of the goal that we conceded, look, I know people are sort of focusing on Vicario right now after his mistake against Brighton, but on that one, I sort of am going to put this one down to a bit of bad luck. I think he has parried it. I think, Paulinia, it's sort of, he couldn't really get out the way of it
Yeah.
either. It's sort of just unfortunate that two Wolves players sitting there waiting to sort of tap it home. So for this one, I'm actually going to put it down to a bit of bad luck rather than maybe call out Vicario, who I think you should have questioned for both goals last week.
Yeah.
Even in one-on-one, I thought maybe there was a lack of intensity to sort of stop it. But I think today I'm going to put it down to a bit of bad
Okay.
luck on this one. So, guys, probably controversial. I know a lot of you will probably agree with Jack, but let us know your thoughts on that in the comment section below. Jack, I mean, where did it all go wrong today in terms of that performance? Why was it so flat? Why was it so void of quality? Because at the end of the day, I know we have a bad record against Wolves. It's now 6 games against Wolves without a win. They are our bogey team. They are to us what we are to Man City. However, to your point, this is the worst Wolves team in the Premier League that we've come up against in quite some time. It's real void of any star quality, any sort of creativity. They were there waiting to be picked off today and waiting for another loss. They have lost all 5 games coming into this game. Where did it go wrong? Because everyone was expecting Spurs to win this and rout them.
I think there ended up being I think the complacency eventually set in just from the lack of quality because Spurs looked to sort of put the pressure on it, felt like in the opening minutes, because opening few minutes we were putting pressure on. We were trying to make them make a mistake, almost doing what Brentford did under Frank, during his time there where they score in the first 30 seconds, first minute and a half or two. But the fact that we didn't then do that, we start to notice like a lot of these guys don't really seem on it today. Like Xavi Simmons, like how many times did his first touch go like 6, 7 yards, away from him? Other players, you would say the same thing. Jed Spence would receive it in a good area, immediately go sideways or backwards. There were other players as well with sloppy touches or first passes that just were all over the place. Like that's one kind of the worrying signs were there was like, is that just down to complacency, lack of intensity, focus? It could be all of those. I'm not sure which one, but it was something that, in my opinion, was carrying on over from previous games. Like Villarreal felt that way. Like it was just such little quality in terms of executing some of the basics. And there were some other games here and there that we've seen recently where players are just not able to do some of the most basic things in football, like having a good first touch. Like as much as we're going to probably talk about Thomas Frank and what he could do better, first half for me is like, I mean, can you really like put the blame on him when Xavi Simmons had like 5, 6 giveaways like in the opening minutes where he's ballooning it out of play. His first touch is away from him every time. Destiny Udogie is taking forever to be able to cross a ball into the box. These type of things, like it felt like it was the worst version of what we have been seeing in kind of previous games of just a real lack of quality. Despite that, we carved out chances. And the frustrating bit is that Spurs continue not to take their chances, even when they're playing, in my opinion, very poorly. Like we did not play well in the first half, but there were opportunities there that I think we should have scored from despite playing poorly. And that's another big worry sign is like, good teams, if they're playing poorly, still take their chances. We're one of those teams that don't seem to be able to do that right
Mm.
now.
No, 100%. I fully agree with you. For me, this game where it all went wrong is the lack of quality in right across the forward line. The defense sort of calmly got the ball into midfield. Midfield got the ball into front line. But if they keep giving it away, I mean,
Exactly.
it's results like today is bound to happen, and it's why Tottenham looks so poor in general. The build-up play from the back into the midfield is actually quite good. It's just when we get that ball into the forward line. I think one mistake that a lot of Spurs fans are making, actually, Jack, is everyone goes, we created chances. And I think they're confusing getting into promising positions and actually creating chances. And what I mean by that is
Probably.
the only chances I really remember us creating is that kudos header, which he should have buried. You're taught as a young lad, header that down into the ground. It's the only place the keeper can't get it. So that's one chance. The other one where Kudos put in a ball, I think Richarlison was a millimeter away.
Yeah.
And then there was one more there that maybe I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
Bergvall
Bergvall, maybe.
share.
Yeah.
But apart from that, what else did we create? That's
It's
three
true.
sort of half decent chances against Wolves. Who I would argue we should be creating 9, 10 chances against, not 3. I think,
True.
yes, in general, we got into a lot of good attacking
True.
positions, but a lot of the quality from them attacking positions was very underwhelming. How many times did Doji hit his man with a cross? How many times does Xavi Simmons give away the ball? How many
Yeah.
times were we on the breakaway and we were passing it in behind players, slowing it down, allowing the opposition to get
Yeah.
back? Our front line is absolutely shocking. It's nowhere near good enough. And I think the only one that I'm really sort of, enamored by has been Kudos. Every game, this guy is carrying this front line. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we were selling Harry Kane, one of the big arguments was we're not going to be so reliant on one individual. Everyone else is going to take their share of the load. We're back to being reliant on one individual yet again.
Yeah.
Every single game, Mohamed Kudus is the only guy that shows any sort of spark going forward. Richarlison, so far off it. I'm actually at the point now, he needs to give someone else a go, whether it's Tell another opportunity, whether it's giving Dane Scarlett an opportunity. But Richarlison done absolutely nothing this evening. Didn't affect the game whatsoever. So I think
Yeah.
I don't know what Thomas Frank is going to do. I think it's going to take time. I think, unfortunately, we're going to see a lot of games like this season. One week we might be competent. The next week we're going to be very underwhelming. I think it's just the only way that's going to fix this isn't down to coaching. It is by bringing in better personnel and continue to bring in better personnel until you get the right combination across that front line. There is only so much coaching can do. And anyway, Thomas Frank, in an interview the other day, sort of was laughing. He said, we barely have any time on the training pitch at the minute. We're just traveling around the place. When we've got the games midweek and stuff like that. He does nowhere near as much time on the training pitches. There's only so much he can do. And when you're playing games every few days, you are more relying on the individual than you are actually the coach to sort of resolve the problem. Lastly, um, you know, where it went wrong. And I was listening to you speaking, Jack, and this sort of popped into my head off the back of what you were speaking when you were talking about, you don't put the first half on Thomas Frank. And I agree with you. I mean, he's not sending them out there to, ping passes across the pitch, but actually put them out in the stands. Telling players when you're controlling the ball, just pop that 10 yards up in the air, make it more difficult for yourself. At the end of the day, he spoke about it in the pre-match interview with Sky. He says, my game plan is to go at them, put the pressure on them. First of all, out of possession. There was no pressing of possession
Yeah, that's true.
until maybe the last couple of minutes of the game when we realized, oh, hang on, we better go and try and get something here. Out possession, we were piss poor, but in possession, so sloppy. And I don't blame Frank. And in years gone by, Spurs fans have also made the mistake. Well, that's Jose's job to get them up for this game. That's Conte's job to get them up for this game. That's Andrew's job to get them up for this game. No, I'm not going to go down the same route and be petty and go, that's Frank's job. At what point do you stop blaming, the individuals and realize you can't, like, if it's happening under 4 or 5 managers, at what point do you then start looking at the players and go, well, if you want to win things, because when we do get good players at Tottenham, their big reason for leaving this club is because they want to go and win trophies. But you would have a chance of winning trophies at Tottenham if you turned up in games like this. These are the games that matter. The big games, they're self-motivating.
Yeah.
It's easy to get up for them. These are the games where you're not getting all the interviews with the telly beforehand. There's not
Yeah.
as much, exposure, in the press beforehand and stuff like that. These are the games that you win, you get over the line, you get your rewards at the end of the season. So when do you actually start looking at the players and the individuals in terms of being up for this game? It almost felt like we just thought we could go out there, and even if we played crap, we would just get over the line somehow. But where was the actual motivation? The whole world was watching. It was the last game of the evening, prime time Saturday evening. Go out and make a statement. Put in a nice cohesive performance. Go and score goals. Put yourself second in the table and go out and make a fucking statement.
Yep.
And we didn't do that. And I question the motivation of the players heading into today's game. Just quickly, Jack, 2 more talking points. Thomas Frank, did he get the substitutions wrong today? Because this has been something that has been aimed at other managers in years gone by. It's been very quickly pulled out for it. I'll be honest, I think he fucked up with the substitutions today.
I think he did as well. I think Sarr needed to come on as soon as possible. Sarr contributed 2 goals and assists. He was able to do that with the layoff for Joao Palhinha. I think Bergval wasn't necessarily the problem in this game, but he decided to go without Sarr and Bergval, which I think has been a winning combination for him. I think Bentancur and Bergval has not been a winning combination for him so far this season. He decided to mix that up. I don't think it paid off. Then you also look at Xavi Simons. Like Xavi Simons, like I'm with you. Like, I think he was given a lot of praise going into the time that he was brought in here. I did rate him at Leipzig. Like he was easily one of Leipzig's best players during
But
his
it's
time
talent there
there.
for sure.
But I think like today, like you had to recognize as a manager that he was having a stinker. Like he was just not showing any bit of quality at all, like that you needed, whether it was off the left or through the middle, really. Like he just wasn't on it today. So I think you needed to think about making that substitution sooner with Xavi. I think you did need to think about bringing on. I know it's a big drop off in quality, but maybe give Odebear more time to get into the game. If you are to bring on a Johnson, put him on the left hand side, which moves me on to moving Kudus onto the left side to accommodate for Brennan Johnson is what some people are kind of thinking. I kind of agree with. Maybe that was the logic was, oh, well, Brennan Johnson performed well against Doncaster Rovers of all teams on the right side. I need to then move Kudus over to the left because Kudus is a better player than Johnson. So he'll play well on the left regardless because then we need to accommodate for Johnson. I think that was a big mistake by Frank. If that was the logic, which I think it might have been, right? That Brennan Johnson hasn't played that well off the left, but then all of a sudden had a good game against a League One side on the right. So then he moved Kudus over. That was a big mistake. And to be honest, like even though Joao Palhinha scored the winner, and I'm probably going to be ludicrous for this by saying it, I didn't think like Bentancur was really the problem in that game. He was the only guy that I can think of, and that wasn't giving the ball away unnecessarily, turning the ball over in a bunch of bad areas. Like it felt like maybe Bergval just was the one that needed to really come off sooner rather than later. But I'm not even going to criticize that one too much because Joao Palhinha at the end of the day scored another fantastic goal. But yeah, the substitutions needed to happen sooner rather than later. And then the ones of, I don't know, like Johnson, Odebear, these sort of guys, like it just didn't work out for him. So a lot of it was all over the place, to be honest.
The substitutions drove me mad today. Just quickly on it, I think Xavi Simons should have been hauled off in the first batch of substitutions. I think as a manager, when you look at Xavi and look, generally, technically solid. When he's struggling to control the ball and struggling to execute passes,
Got to
you
get him
got to
off.
recognise it's not his day and get him off the pitch. He left him on way too long. He accommodated him by moving into the number 10, and things didn't get any better. In fact, they only got worse, making more and more poor decisions. I think taking off Bentancur, I think was a poor decision. To your point, a lot of players were giving away possession today, but he was one of the tidier ones in possession today. And I think when he took him off, let's not forget, and he moved Bergval into the deeper position.
We got worse.
Bergval, we nearly went two down. It was a simple thing, a simple ball over the top. He couldn't deal with. Wolves got on the end of it, and one where you were saying Romero should have come across. And I
Yeah.
remember I was
Yeah.
saying to you, I was like, I do get what you're saying. Maybe he has to realise, the kid was struggling there. He has to come across, but he's also sitting there going, well, if he's good enough to be out here, he's got to be able to handle that. That's basics. And I think it's a decision that nearly come back to bite us. And also, he started getting erratic, just ballooning balls away and stuff like that. And I just think we lost Bentancur. We probably would have maybe got an equaliser earlier and maybe would have ended up pushing for the winner, I think, if he kept them on. I think the big one for me, though, I think the most shocking decision of it all today was moving Kudos over to the left-hand
Yeah.
side. I can understand what he was trying to do. I'm a little bit different to you. I think maybe he looked at it by bringing on Pedro Porro and going, well, he'll just throw balls in from that side. I'll get Kudos over the left. Hopefully he can replicate what he's done on the
Balance it out.
right-hand side and balance it out a little bit and just sort of go at Wolves and try and pen them in. It didn't work. But why did he leave it for so long before he moved Kudos out of there? For me, 5-10 minutes, if it's not working, put him straight back over onto the right hand side and move Johnson out onto the left hand side. I just think for me, that was the biggest error because the reality is we weren't great going forward. Whatever spark we did have, Frank, our own manager, eliminated it by
Yeah.
moving it over the left hand side and made the Wolves manager job so much more easier. I think piss poor in terms of substitutions today. Lastly, Jack, don't want to spend too long on this because we'll probably talk about it during the week. Paulinia popping up with a late winner. That's 4 goals this season. I mean, everyone's just full of praise for the guy. Not only has he come in and plugged a hole in the number 6, but you made this point during the week, and it's gone unnoticed. He's contributing with goals.
I think the big worry right now, he's been fantastic in that department, which is why it feels like you kind of do have to just leave him on. He's going to find a way, it seems like, for Joao Palhinha. But the big takeaway I'm having right now is Pop Matasar and Joao Palhinha have probably been our biggest goal contributors from the preseason up until this point right now. And those are guys that, like, in certain games, you're like, yeah, they could pop up with a goal. Maybe they could pop up with a bit of moment of quality. But fact, they're the ones who
Yeah.
probably have some of the most goal contributions right now in the team is a big worry for me because they should not be the ones carrying the sort of the creativity or more or less just the being able to have that clinical edge. Like they are putting away their chances. It's not like Joao Palhinha has given a ton of chances in the game to score. It's not like Pop Matasar has given a ton of chances in the game to score, but they are taking them when they come their way, whereas Richarlison doesn't take them. You look at the likes of Kudus, even as much as he's been very creative, has not been taking his chances. Xavi Simons not taking his chances when they come their way, and some other players in the forward area, Matisse Tell to Odebear and others. Like the big worry is that we're being carried by guys in the finishing department that should not be carrying us. Like they should be helping add to already a very robust and very, clinical forward line. And then you become a great team because then you're like, we have a ton of guys who can put away a chance. It feels like right now, Pop Matasar and Joao Palhinha might be our best goal contributors, either goals and assists right now on the team, which worries me.
Well, to your point, Jack, I think, this is what concerns me. People view Papa Matasar as more of a defensive-minded player. He's not as flamboyant on the ball as people would like. Paulini was brought in here to be a defensive-minded
Same
player.
thing.
The fact that we're relying on our defensive-minded players, even Romero, in terms of burden and carrying a lot of the creativity out from the back, it's him that's spreading the ball, out to the left wing and putting them in great positions. It's not like we're carving them open with good intricate play, midfielders or wingers. A lot of our forward play and our best forward play is coming from a lot of the defensive-minded players in the team, which is a huge concern. I think you're absolutely spot on. But in terms of Paulinia, I mean, hopefully, more than anything, because I'm running out of praise for the guy, but hopefully more than anything, it's an indication to the board to not shy away from signing 30-year-olds who've been around the game for a long time, who, are really solid quality players. Because you look at Paulinia, Look at the difference they can make to your team in
Yeah.
general. So hopefully, for me, the biggest thing
Good
is
point.
that the board start maybe looking at more players of that ilk.
True.
Guys, that's it from us. That's our feelings on it. Let's know your feelings on it. I'm well aware some people are going to be uber positive, saying, guys, stop moaning. There's going to be other people out there that feel like myself and Jack. But most importantly, I need to hear your thoughts on it because I am
Yeah.
going crazy after this performance. So I'm left with a lot more questions than answers, and I'm left with a lot more concerns than maybe alleviating concerns moving forward. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Smash that like. Look out for Twitter reacts, and as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. See you next time, everybody. Let us know what you guys think.